On a new school day, Nishikata realized with alarm that he had forgotten to bring his English book, and they had English class today. Luckily for him, Takagi noticed his distress and offered to lend him her book. But there was a catch. They would have to move their desks together to share it. Embarrassed by the idea of sitting so close to her, Nishikata hesitated. Not wanting to be around her for too long, especially under the teasing gaze he knew would follow, he decided to search the school for another English book. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find anyone willing to lend him one. Because of this, Nishikata has no choice but to move his desk closer to Takagi and share her English book. When class begins, he gets nervous from being so close to her. As he writes in the book, he finds himself thinking, "It feels good to be close to you." Asterisk. Overwhelmed by his feelings, Nishikata blushes profusely. Noticing this, Professor Tanabe calls on him to translate a word from English to Japanese. With a little help from Takagi, Nishikata correctly translates the word, victory. Asterisk. Inspired, Nishikata gets an idea while reviewing vocabulary. He writes a letter with a seemingly random message, but when read vertically, it spells out, "I am an airhead." He gives it to Takagi, hoping she'll fall for it. Ironically, she doesn't. Instead, Takagi writes a similar letter. When read vertically, it says, "I won." Once again, she proves herself the queen of mischief. As always, Takagi is an open book, easy for Nishikata to read, or so he thinks. Soon after, Takagi hands him another letter. This time, it contains a direct love message. When Nishikata reads it, he blushes. Not believing it could be real, he starts searching for a hidden meaning. Takagi bursts out laughing. There is no secret message. She meant exactly what she wrote. On another day, Nishikata shows Takagi a pendulum he created after watching a hypnosis segment on TV. Curious, Takagi asks him to try it on her. Nervous, he agrees and begins to swing the pendulum, reciting a hypnotic phrase. At first, Takagi doesn't seem to take it seriously. But when Nishikata finishes the phrase and stops the pendulum, Takagi appears completely hypnotized. Unsure if it worked, he tests her by asking her to do embarrassing things. To his surprise, she does them all, making him laugh. Finally, he tells her to pinch her nose, imagining how funny and embarrassed she'll look. But just before she does, she suddenly reaches out and tickles Nishikata's ribs, revealing that she was never hypnotized and had been pretending the whole time. Meanwhile, Mina, watching the same hypnosis program on TV, actually ends up hypnotized for real. Despite a lack of sleep, Ito acts like a dog in front of Sanae and Yukari, drawing laughter from the group. A short while later, the group heads to the river to play a game, stone skipping. The goal is simple: the person whose stone bounces the most wins. Nishikata, confident in his skill, has played this game many times before. In fact, he once brought Takagi here just to beat her at it. After carefully selecting his stone, he winds up for a throw, but just as he lets go, Takagi casually remarks that she can skip a stone 30 times. The distraction proves costly. Nishikata's stone plops into the river without bouncing even once. When it's Takagi's turn, she skips her stone 3 times, enough to win. But sensing that her victory wasn't entirely fair, she offers Nishikata a rematch. In round 2, Nishikata searches intently for the perfect stone. The moment he spots one, he lunges for it, but in his excitement, he accidentally bumps into Takagi, nearly knocking her into the river. Thankfully, she doesn't fall. Nishikata grabs her hand just in time to stop her, but the effort causes him to lose his balance and tumble into the river himself. They walk home afterward, awkwardly silent. It's the first time they've held hands, even if it was purely accidental. But to Nishikata, the loss feels worthwhile. He may have lost the game, but he got to hold Takagi's hand, even if just for a second. Later, with snow blanketing the town, the two stumble upon a large, frozen puddle. Nishikata, thrilled like a child, amuses Takagi with his excitement. He proposes a new game. Whoever can carry the biggest chunk of ice from the puddle to school wins. Takagi accepts. Nishikata, confident in his strength, picks up a huge piece of ice, sure he'll win. But along the way, Takagi distracts him again, and he nearly drops it. He manages to catch it before it shatters, and the game goes on. At one point, Takagi tells Nishikata that the loser will have to warm the winner's hands as a punishment. Upon hearing this, Nishikata becomes so nervous that he accidentally drops his ice cube, which shatters on the ground, knocking him out of the game. Takagi laughs at the situation and tells him it's time to face his punishment. She holds out her hand, and Nishikata does the same. Before their hands touch, Takagi shyly asks him to warm her hand properly. Blushing, Nishikata gently takes her hand in his. The next day, Nishikata proposes a new game to Takagi. He challenges her to guess what visible change he's made to his appearance. Confident that she won't notice, he grins inwardly. It's just a small cut in his hair. When the game begins, Takagi doesn't hesitate to step in close. She inspects Nishikata from every angle, crossing the boundaries of personal space without a second thought. Naturally, Nishikata blushes furiously, not just because she's so close, but because she's tickling him slightly and even leaning in to smell him. Flustered and unable to take the embarrassment any longer, Nishikata tries to stop the game. But before he does, he asks Takagi what she thinks the change is. Without missing a beat, she correctly guesses it's the small change in his hair. She explains that hair and nails are the parts of the body that change the quickest, making it an easy guess. Takagi wins the game once again, but Nishikata, having secretly enjoyed the interaction, tells her that next time he'll change something about his body so she can try to guess again. A few days later, Valentine's Day arrives, and Nishikata is filled with anticipation, hoping Takagi will give him chocolates. He checks his locker first but finds nothing. Later, during class, he keeps waiting for Takagi to hand him chocolates, but she never does. The only thing she asks him for is his eraser. Disheartened, Nishikata starts to lose hope. Meanwhile, Mina becomes the center of attention on Valentine's Day by handing out homemade chocolates to all her classmates. Unfortunately, their teacher, Mr. Tanabe, is a known Valentine's Day grump. He confiscates all of Mina's chocolates on the spot, leaving her heartbroken. Another one is feeling down. Mono wants to give Nakai chocolates for Valentine's Day but doesn't have the courage. She turns to Takagi for advice. Takagi reassures her, saying that giving chocolates to someone you like isn't difficult. He even shares that he already gave chocolates to someone special, carefully, of course. Encouraged by Takagi's words, Mono decides to give her chocolates to Nakai. However, when she approaches him, he's chatting with his friends. They tease her playfully, causing Mono to panic and run away. Later, Nakai finds her and asks why she ran off. Embarrassed, Mono admits that she just wanted to give him chocolates for Valentine's Day. Nakai smiles and says he'd be happy to accept them, if she still wants to give them. Mono gives him the chocolates, but just then, Tanabe appears and threatens to confiscate them. Fortunately, Nakai quickly claims the package is a book. Tanabe buys the story and walks away, letting them keep the chocolates. Thanks to Nakai's quick thinking, he can now enjoy Mono's heartfelt gift. At the end of the day, the only ones who didn't receive chocolates were Nishikata and his group of friends. Before heading home, Nishikata checks his locker, and to his surprise, finds a red box of chocolates inside. Moments later, Takagi shows up and teasingly asks who he thinks left them there. Nishikata, flustered, insists it must have been her. But Takagi just smiles and gives him another box directly. He's left in shock, so she was the one who left the chocolates in his locker after all. April Fool's Day. On April Fool's Day, Nishikata decides it's his turn to prank Takagi. He invites her to the neighborhood candy store, claiming there's a special sale on strange, novelty candies. When they arrive, Nishikata is stunned, because although he made up the story as part of the prank, the sale actually is real. Because of this, she has no choice but to enter the shop with Takagi. Although she has a new plan for mischief, she's always one step ahead, able to tell exactly when Nishikata is lying or scheming. After trying some strange candies with unpleasant flavors, she asks him not to lie anymore. Nishikata agrees, and right after that, she puts her plan into action. Takagi suddenly asks, "Have you ever blushed because of me?" Ironically, Nishikata blushes, and admits that he has. Then she follows up with another question. do you want to be in the same class next year? Takagi tells him that she heard from Sune that second-year students are required to switch classes due to school rules. At first, Nishikata feels relieved. If she's in a different class next year, she won't be sitting next to him and teasing him all the time. But that relief quickly turns into something else, sadness. He realizes that if someone else replaces Takagi in his daily life, things just won't be the same. So, without lying, Nishikata tells Takagi that he wants to stay in the same class with her. Takagi smiles, clearly happy to hear it, then reveals she was teasing him. The students don't actually change classes in the second year. The scene then flashes back to the beginning of Nishikata's first year. From the moment he met Takagi, she never stopped teasing him. She had quickly figured out how shy and easy to read he was. Determined to stop her from bothering him, Nishikata comes up with a plan to scare her, one that he believes will finally throw her off. With help from his friends Takao and Kimura, he decides to call her by her first name. One day after class, Takagi says goodbye to him, calling him Nishikata-kun. In response, he says goodbye, but calls her simply Takagi. Her reaction is unexpected. She pauses, thoughtful, and then scolds him. Nervously, Nishikata corrects himself and calls her Takagi-san. She immediately teases him. Why did you suddenly call me Takagi-san instead of just Takagi? Nishikata replies that he called her Takagi-san to maintain formality between them, saying he won't call her by her first name again since they're not that close. Takagi laughs and tells him it's fine to call her whatever he wants, since there's already a lot of trust between them. After that, she says goodbye, this time simply calling him Nishikata. Back in the present, Nishikata reflects on how Takagi treated him during their first days at school. Determined not to be the same as before, he vows to act more maturely now that they're starting their second year. Taking inspiration from the Forbidden Love manga he's been secretly reading, Nishikata decides to start fresh. As soon as he enters their new classroom, he boldly asks Takagi to stop teasing him, now that he's a second-year student. Takagi agrees, on one condition. She says she'll ask him a few questions to see if he's truly mature. Her first question: are you in love with someone? Nishikata, staying composed thanks to advice from his manga, dodges the question with a surprisingly mature response. But Takagi, always one step ahead, sees right through him. She starts asking more questions that seem oddly familiar, questions directly lifted from the manga Nishikata's been reading. Realizing this, Nishikata panics. He knows what's coming next in the story, a romantic turning point between the manga's main characters. Not wanting to go through something like that with Takagi, he tries to stop the game. But Takagi doesn't let up. She cheekily starts calling him Nishikata-senpai, which flusters him. In a burst of frustration, he blurts out her first name, Takagi, without the honorific. This catches her off guard. She blushes, since it's the first time he's ever called her that. Flustered himself, Nishikata asks her to say his first name too. But ironically, she reverts to calling him Takagi-san again, teasing him. Nishikata laughs, realizing she can't bring herself to say his name so casually either. In the end, Takagi declares herself the winner of their little maturity contest. And as her prize, she says that from now on, he has to call her Takagi-senpai*. A few days later*, Nishikata defeated all of his friends in an arm wrestling match. This unexpected victory was thanks to the countless push-ups he'd done over the past year, each one a result of Takagi teasing him. When Takagi saw how easily he beat his friends, she challenged him to a match after class. In the first round*, Nishikata took the lead. He was using only a bit of his strength, while Takagi seemed to be giving it everything she had. Seeing her struggle so much softened his heart, and he let his guard down. That small moment of hesitation cost him the win. Takagi had been faking her struggle just to lure him in. In the second round*, Nishikata decided to go all out from the start. But just as he was gaining the upper hand, Takagi casually mentioned that his hands were sweaty. The comment made him self-conscious and distracted, enough for her to take advantage and win again. Since Nishikata lost 2 rounds, he owed her a drink on the way home. Before buying Takagi's drink, he picked up a coffee for himself. Kimura had once told him that coffee was something only grown-ups or important people drank. Wanting to seem more mature, Nishikata gave it a try. The moment he took a sip, his face contorted in disgust. It was far too bitter for his taste. Takagi jokingly suggested he rinse his mouth with more coffee to sweeten the flavor. He tried, and it only made things worse. Eventually, Nishikata gave up and asked Takagi to choose a drink for him. She picked a simple, delicious melon soda. He was tempted to take a sip from her bottle, especially when she offered it to him, but he stopped himself. He told her that if she drank from his soda, it would be like giving him an indirect kiss. Because of that, Nishikata stubbornly finished the bitter coffee and refused to drink from her soda. Afterward, he told Takagi she didn't need to drink coffee or act older to seem more mature. As they grew up, he'd still keep putting in the effort to tease her back. No matter how much he grows in age or maturity, some things never change. One morning, Nishikata notices that Takagi isn't riding her bike like she usually does. Thinking back to the day before, he starts to suspect that her bike might be broken, maybe the brakes gave out. Determined to prove how clever he is, Nishikata approaches Takagi and confidently tells her that he knows why she didn't bring her bike. He challenges her to let him guess, and warns her that if he gets it wrong, she can tease him all she wants. Just as he's about to reveal his answer, Takagi suddenly suggests they take a walk around the neighborhood. They wander up some stairs, play a quick game of hopscotch, and even stop to watch some adorable stray cats. All the while, Nishikata's confidence begins to waver. Still, he gathers his courage and gives his answer. It's because your brakes are broken, right? But Takagi simply smiles and tells him he's wrong. The real reason, she left her bike at home just to see how flustered he'd get trying to figure it out. As usual, Nishikata had walked right into her trap. She laughs at his reaction, but then cryptically mentions that he had actually guessed another reason earlier, one she won't reveal just yet. When he begs to know what it was, she only grins and tells him he'll find out in time. A few days later, Nishikata tries a new tactic. After watching Dandy of the Old West, he decides to ignore Takagi in hopes of avoiding her teasing. But his plan backfires. Takagi has seen the same movie and already knows his strategy. She surprises him by poking his ribs, knowing it's his weakness, and gets the reaction she wanted. Later, Nishikata suggests they play a question game. Takagi agrees, but with a twist. Every time he answers incorrectly, she'll tickle him in his weak spot. Takagi goes first. All her questions are about love, naturally, and as expected, Nishikata struggles to answer without getting flustered. With every stumble, Takagi tickles him, and he becomes more nervous. A few days after that, it's Nishikata's birthday. His mother is the first to wish him a happy birthday and lets him know she's already bought his cake. The problem was that the cake was still at the bakery, so Nishikata had to go and get it. On his way, he unexpectedly ran into Takagi. With no other choice, he ended up going with Takagi to the store. Before Nishikata could pick up the birthday cake, Takagi asked to take his place at the bar and gave it to him, hoping Nishikata would finish his business quickly so he wouldn't see Takagi take the cake himself. Nishikata bought a few things, then gave them to Takagi, wishing her a happy birthday. He then went home with the birthday cake and a mysterious bag that Takagi had given him earlier. After putting the cake in the refrigerator, Nishikata rushed to his room and opened the bag. Inside, he found some sweet cookies and a special gift Takagi had thoughtfully chosen, a necklace featuring the female protagonist from the Forbidden Love manga. The next day, despite the beautiful weather, Nishikata suddenly sneezed. He remembered that in Japan, when someone sneezes without being sick, it is believed to mean that someone is spreading rumors about them. Takagi suspected that Yukari and her friends were behind it, and ironically, he was right. On the other side of town, Yukari, Sane, and Mina were gossiping about the possible relationship between Nishikata and Takagi. Because of this, Takagi sneezed too. He became convinced that Yukari and the others were definitely talking about him and Nishikata. Hearing Takagi sneeze, Nishikata thought about teasing him but stopped when Takagi sneezed on Tim, who was incredibly cute and made Nishikata blush. Takagi then commented that Yukari was spreading rumors about them. At that moment, Nishikata reached into his pocket, and the necklace Takagi gave him accidentally rang. He had no choice but to take it out and show it to Takagi, shyly thanking him for the gift. Takagi smiled and said it was no problem. He told Nishikata that the necklace was something he had carefully chosen just for him. On a new day, Nishikata challenges Takagi to a game during their physical education class. He bets that he can score higher than her on the physical tests, and if she wins, she must stop teasing and making fun of him. Takagi agrees, but only on one condition. If she wins, Nishikata will have to tease her for the rest of his life. Both accept the deal and put their full effort into the tests. Nishikata gives his all, backed by over a year of training at home, and manages to achieve great scores. During the flexibility test, Nishikata performs poorly, while Takagi scores a perfect 10, the highest possible. Seeing this, Nishikata decides to focus all his energy on the final test, the grip strength test. He concentrates, determined to use all his strength on the measuring apparatus. However, Takagi interrupts him with encouragement. She cheers him on by repeatedly calling his name and then advises him to imagine that he is holding her hand to maximize his grip strength. Nishikata, misunderstanding, thinks he is supposed to imagine holding Takagi's hand. Instead of applying full strength, he inadvertently weakens his grip. As a result, Nishikata scores poorly on the grip strength test. Takagi then tells Nishikata that she's given up and is ready to admit he's the winner of the bet. She happily shows him her grade sheet from all the physical tests, revealing that she scored low across the board, making it impossible for her to win. Because she gave up after the last test, all her earlier efforts were for nothing. Later, after class, the two meet at a playground to play dodgeball. Nishikata feels confident he can beat Takagi, but he overlooks one key fact: Takagi has the ball. In her first attempt to tag Nishikata, she distracts him by telling him to look at the wall. Nishikata blindly follows her instruction, giving Takagi just enough time to throw the ball and win the game.